Yo, what's up? It's T. Welcome back to Money Sense. So today, we're going to be talking about one of the most important concepts in personal finance. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, it might be a little bit boring, but it could be the difference between success and failure, so listen up. This concept is so powerful that Albert Einstein once said that it's the eighth wonder of the world, and he who understands it, earns it, and he who doesn't, pays it. I'm not exactly sure if Albert Einstein actually said that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but the point still stands. Of course, today, we're talking about compound interest. Understanding this concept could be the difference between making thousands and losing thousands. Now, brace yourself. There's going to be a lot of math in this video, but let's get right into it. For those who don't know, interest can be defined as the amount of money added on to the original amount that you borrow, or it's the amount of money that you make from an investment. Generally, interest is expressed as a percentage per year, or APR, and we can make interest when we invest, and we'll have to pay interest when we borrow. For example, a $100 investment that earns 10% per year will earn $10 in interest after 1 year, in addition to the original $100 amount. In the same way, borrowing $100 at 10% interest means you're going to have to pay back $110 after 1 year. So you can see that interest can either work for you or against you depending on your situation. Compound interest just builds off of this idea. With compound interest, you can earn interest on top of the interest that you've already earned in the past. The best way to understand it is just to see it in action. So let's do that right now. If again, there's an investment of $100 at 10% interest, after 1 year, it'll earn $10 in interest, bringing the total value up to $110. The next year, we'd earn another 10% in interest, but not on the original $100 amount, but on the full $110 value, meaning you'd earn $11 in interest, bringing the total value up to $121. Notice how in the second year, the investment made $1 more in interest than the previous year. The next year, the investment will make another 10%, not on $100, not on $110, but on the full $121 amount, meaning you'd earn $12.10 in interest. Notice how each year, the growth gets faster and faster. It didn't grow by $10 each year. It started off by growing by 10, then it went to 11, then 12. So not only is your investment growing, it's growing at an increasing rate. Over time, you end up with a graph that looks like this, where the value of an investment or the amount needed to pay off a loan grows exponentially over time. You may have seen a graph like this in the exponential functions unit of math class. So now that you know what compound interest is, you're probably wondering how that affects the way you manage your money. Well, if you do it right, you can use compound interest to turn relatively small amounts of money into larger sums. For example, if at the age of 18, $1,000 is invested into a low-risk stock market index fund that returns about 8% each year, by the time that person turns 65, that amount will be worth over $37,000. Meaning with very little work and just letting compound interest do the trick, that investment would have increased by over 37 times. But most people don't invest by throwing in money once early on. Most people invest steadily over time. So instead of doing it once, investing $100 a month under the same conditions would yield over $560,000. So just like that, you can see how compound interest can turn small amounts into larger amounts by growing it exponentially. However, the same way it helps you when you invest, compound interest works equally against you when you borrow money, whether it be a credit card or a bank loan. The amount you owe will grow exponentially over time if you don't pay it back, and it could halt your financial progress. There are two more things you should consider. Number one, like and subscribe. I'm joking, kind of. But the real number one is to consider the amount of time you hold an investment for. The longer you hold an investment for, the more time you give it to compound and gain interest, and the more money you'll make. To see this in action, let's compare two scenarios. Bob starts investing as soon as he turns 18, but Joe starts investing when he turns 30. Bob invests $500 every month until he turns 65, earning 8% interest per year. At the end of it, Bob would have invested $282,000 of his own money, but the investment would have grown to over $2.8 million. Joe, realizing it was a bit late, invests $800 every month, earning the same 8% interest. When Joe retires at 65, he would have invested $336K of his own money, but the investment would have only grown to $1.7 million, which is still a lot, but it's nowhere close to where Bob was. Even though Joe invested $54,000 more out of his own pocket than Bob did, Bob's investment was still worth $1 million more than Joe's. All because Bob started at age 18 and Joe waited to start until age 30. By having his investment for longer, Bob was able to make much more for much less. To catch up to Bob, Joe would have needed to invest $1,300 a month. And if you go back to the graph, it actually makes a lot of sense. If you cut off the end of the graph, you miss out on the biggest period of growth. So what this means is you should start as early as possible and hold your investments for as long as possible. And again, remember this works against you when you borrow money. The longer that you have a debt for, the more it's going to grow and the more you're going to have to pay back. The second thing to consider is the amount of interest the investment gains. You want to find the highest possible return to maximize the investment's value. Again, let's compare two scenarios to see it in action. Let's say that Bob invests $500 a month, earning 18% between the ages of 18 and 65. At the end of it, he would have invested $282,000 of his own money, and again, it would have grown to over $2.8 million. For the same time period, Joe invests $1,000 a month, which is double what Bob invests, but instead he only earns 4%. At the end of it, he would have invested $564,000, but it would have only grown to just over $1.6 million. Even though he invested double the amount, Joe's investment was still worth over $1 million less than Bob's, all because Bob was able to get 8% returns while Joe was only able to get 4%. Now, what I'm not saying is to YOLO all your money on lifeless cryptos and NFTs in hopes of a higher return, but what I mean is looking to squeeze out an extra 1 or 2% gain, which may mean taking on some extra risk, but the reward might be worth it, so long as you're smart about it. And again, remember this concept works against you when you're borrowing, especially with how high credit card interest is. So always remember how powerful compound interest can be when you're growing an investment, or how equally detrimental it can be when you're taking on debts. When you're investing, make sure to start as soon as possible, hold your investments for as long as possible, and always seek to maximize the return on investment. Then just sit back and watch the money grow. Your future self will thank you. It just makes sense. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe so you're up to date on the next video. Also drop a comment down below to let me know what you think, and follow my Instagram page at moneysense.t. I'll see you in the next one.